How's it going, everyone? Dax here, and today we're going to be reacting to a Patrick CC video, How The Rock Held Hollywood Hostage for 10 years straight. If you didn't know, The Rock's been in a lot of movies in Hollywood, and I'm guessing they've all been pretty damn big, because he's a big name, he's a big household name. But anyway, let's get straight into it. And away we go.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has had a major box office film every single year for the past 2 decades.
Oh, bro,
Nearly all of them were an
I believe
overwhelming financial success, with the exception of a few. Over the years, The Rock has stamped himself as one of the most successful and beloved entertainers of all time, worth a whopping $320 million. He has Hollywood in a chokehold. And although many people think The Rock is simply just this perfect, family-friendly brand that sold out, left the WWE, and was embraced with open arms into the film world, that couldn't be further from the truth. Every single time
we're getting the dark side of The Rock.
He was rejected and
Video?
had to prove himself. And with his back against the wall, he formulated a plan. That plan would be the catalyst to him absolutely dominating Hollywood for the past 10 years. Stay hydrated.
Bro,
Many of you got your first introduction to The Rock through the WWE. Even though he never saw himself pursuing this career, Dwayne Johnson was quite literally born to be a wrestler. His father, Wade Douglas Bowles, was a former professional wrestler who wrestled under the ring name Rocky Johnson. Through the late 60s to mid-70s, he was a major star in California. Rocky wrestled with the WWF in the 1980s, where he and his partner Tony Atlas were the first black tag team champions in WWE history. But it wasn't just his father who has wrestling roots. The Rock's mother, Atta, was adopted into the most iconic Samoan wrestling family of all time, the Anoa'i family.
Sick.
Her father is wrestler High Chief Peter Maivia, and his wife Leah is one of wrestling's first female promoters, which makes The Rock related, through marriage of course, to the Wild Samoans, Yokozuna, Rikishi, Umaga, and Roman Reigns. It seemed like his destiny was written for him the moment he was born. However, The Rock did not want to be a wrestler. Growing up, Johnson moved around a lot. He briefly spent his childhood in Auckland, New Zealand, then he moved to Charlotte, North Carolina briefly, then to Hamden, Connecticut, where he attended elementary and middle school. When he was 12, they moved to Hawaii, where his mom's family lived. That's when it got rough, he says. His dad worked less, which sent them into poverty and led to fights with the family. He saw from a very young age how financially unstable a wrestling career would be. Frustrated with being poor, he started stealing, then getting arrested. He began getting into fights with kids at school and turning into an angry kid. As a 13-year-old child, he was lost and lacking guidance. So the family relocated again to Nashville, Tennessee before settling in Pennsylvania. Dwayne attended Freedom High School in Bethlehem Township in the Lehigh Valley.
Yo, that's so American. Freedom High School. No shot.
Dwayne attended Freedom High School in Bethlehem Township
brother,
in
give him
the
that
Lehigh
freedom.
Valley. Freedom was his 4th high school in 3 years in 3 different states. Johnson found himself outside the principal's office at each school, frequently encountering conflict and participating in petty crime. Before the age of 17, he was arrested multiple times for fighting, theft, and check fraud. His life was on a fast track to nowhere, until one teacher would change his life. After settling an argument with Jody Quick, the school's football coach, he asked Dwayne to play football for Liberty. On the football field, Johnson was given the structure and discipline his life otherwise lacked. Quick became the strong male figure Dwayne needed since his father, Rocky, was usually away working. As a 6'4", 230-pound junior, Johnson wreaked havoc from the defensive line. He fell in love with the game. It gave his life purpose. Coach Quick sat him down and said, "Listen, your family doesn't have any money, your grades are average. If you're going to get out of this town and make a different life for yourself, football is the vehicle." Dwayne's mentality did a 180, from being a rebellious criminal to a fully focused and determined young man obsessed with making it. He became a 3-sport athlete: football, wrestling, and track and field. Liberty High School competed in the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference, in which the wrestling programs have been ranked best in the nation by One Magazine, and have been described as among the nation's best in the sport for nearly 3 decades. And despite his wrestling talents, football was where his heart was. Dwayne had only played for 2 years, but he drew the attention of NCAA Division I collegiate programs. College football recruiters ranked him among the nation's top 10 high school defensive tackles. He received offers from Penn State, UCLA, Clemson, Florida State, and dozens of other top programs, but he eventually accepted a full athletic scholarship from the University of Miami, whose football program was then one of the best in the nation. In 1990, he made an amazing first impression to the Miami coaches. He was fast, he was strong, and he worked harder than anyone. But before he got to play his first game, he suffered a shoulder injury, which made the coaches shift their focus from Dwayne to Warren Sapp, who would go on to be an NFL Hall of Famer. Over the years, he had 4 knee surgeries and lived in the shadow of Sapp. He ended his Miami career with 78 tackles and 4 sacks. No NFL coaches wanted to take a chance on him. However, the Calgary Stampeders in the Canadian Football League gave him a shot. He was making $250 Canadian per week, which is basically equal to minimum wage, but it didn't last long.
He looks like a different person. Yeah. No, he looks quite young. What am I saying? But he looks like a different person.
Which is
it's crazy.
basically equal to minimum wage, but it didn't last long. Just 2 months after being signed to the practice roster, he was cut. He returned home to Tampa in 1995 with $7 in his pocket and no future. Dwayne really thought the NFL was going to be his career, and he fell into a deep depression when he realized his dreams were not going to come to fruition. The only backup plan was wrestling. However, the instability of finances and constant traveling destroyed their family and his childhood. His father did not want Dwayne to go down that path, but Dwayne had run out of options, and eventually his father gave in and decided to train him. In 1996, Dwayne began his professional wrestling career. It took him less than 1 year to get signed to the WWF for obvious reasons. He was the son and grandson of 2 wrestling legends. He didn't have to grind in amateur leagues as long as other people. November 17th, 1996, Madison Square Garden, the Survivor Series. He made his WWF debut as Rock Madison Square Garden, the Survivor Series.
What year?
People. November 17th, 1996.
I wasn't even born yet. That's that's crazy.
Madison Square Garden, the Survivor Series. He made his WWF debut as Rocky Maivia, combining his father and grandfather's ring names. Nicknamed the Blue Chipper, Johnson was hyped as WWF's first third-generation wrestler and was pushed heavily despite his wrestling inexperience. In an 8-man elimination tag match, Rocky secured the victory. 3 months later, he won the company's Intercontinental Championship and wrestled his first WrestleMania match the following month. However, fans did not accept him with open arms. WWF fans became increasingly hostile towards Maivia, with chants of "Die Rocky Die" being heard during his matches. As many of you know, wrestling is scripted, and the outcomes are predetermined. It's like a live-action reality show. But one thing that is not fake about wrestling is the fan engagement. Wrestlers get their fan base from their image or personality displayed on the microphone. If the fans do not like you, and the show's writers can't find a way for you to get on their good side, you will lose your job. Rocky Maivia was a clean-cut, happy-go-lucky good guy who wasn't resonating with the audience. After losing his Intercontinental Championship and suffering a legitimate knee injury, Johnson disappeared from television for months. But he wasn't going to let the WWF writers ruin his chances of him being a star.
Is he going to come back as the villain?
Rebrand. In August 1997, he returned, but with a noticeably more aggressive demeanor, lashing out at the audience whenever they booed him. He deaded the Rocky Maivia name and referred to himself in the third person as The Rock. He had officially turned heel, which is a wrestling term for a wrestler portraying a villain or acting as an antagonist. Now portraying a self-absorbed narcissist, The Rock regularly insulted the audience, fellow wrestlers, and interviewers whenever he could. The character worked because it came naturally to him, and it didn't take long for the audience to start warming up to his newfound persona. He didn't know it then, but he was already preparing himself for Hollywood. From 1997 to 2002, The Rock became a phenomenon, dubbed the People's Champion. He was debatably the most beloved wrestler in the industry.
You're not undisputed champion, so shut up, bitch!
From the single eyebrow raise to his numerous catchphrases to his over-exaggerated mannerisms, The Rock established himself as the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. At this point in his career, The Rock had surpassed the legacy of anyone in his heritage, having become one of the most decorated champions in WWE history. Also in the early 2000s, wrestling was at its peak in average viewership and ratings. The Rock being the most charismatic and marketable wrestler at the most popular time in wrestling history was a perfect storm that would change his life forever. He figured the transition from wrestling to acting wouldn't be that hard. After all, wrestling is acting, and most of the time it's live, so you only get one take. He began dabbling in TV with cameos on That 70s Show, Star Trek Voyager, and Saturday Night Live. In fact, after his SNL debut, one of the most respected film critics of all time, Roger Ebert, said this:
Have you met The Rock before?
This guy is going to be a major movie star. He should get out of
He
wrestling
knew.
as soon as possible.
That prediction
He
couldn't have
knew.
been more true. In 2001, Dwayne made his first feature film debut
Oh no, that was so bad because the CGI was so bad, but it played a good part in it.
in
But the
The
CGI
Mummy
was so bad.
Returns, which grossed roughly $435 million at the box office. Despite only having 15 minutes of screen time, Johnson was paid $5.5 million
Holy
for his portrayal of the Scorpion King.
Jesus.
This salary earned him an entry into the Guinness Book of World Records as the highest payment for an untested actor. This just goes to show you
crazy.
how big of a superstar he was and how much his brand was worth. He reprised his role as the Scorpion King in the prequel the following year, earning
That
over
was a lot better.
$180 million at the box office. But again, wrestling fans were not happy with his newfound Hollywood success. When he returned to wrestling
Alright.
at 2002 SummerSlam, he received a negative crowd response during his match. When he tried to do a post-show speech, the crowd within the stadium booed him. This put a sour taste in his mouth, and The Rock would disappear from wrestling for another year. To make matters worse,
Damn.
his 2003 film The Rundown was considered a flop, since the film did not profit. This left him in limbo, feeling unsure of which
I don't think
career
I've heard
to
The
pursue.
Rundown.
His heart was still in wrestling, but he needed a rebrand for the second time, and that's exactly what he was going to do. In 2003, The Rock turned heel again and started a new persona, dubbed Hollywood Rock. With a new look and a shaved head, his new persona as a snobby Hollywood jock who looks down on the wrestling community earned him a lot of haters, but you could tell he was having fun and wasn't afraid to lean even harder into this character. He eventually won over the audience because of his charisma and hilarious jokes. Plus, he was still a legend at this point, so it was hard to pretend to hate him for much longer. Many wrestling fans think The Rock is at his best when he is in his Attitude Era. Sadly for them, this was all very short-lived. The Rock's contract with the WWE ended in 2004, and he quietly retired without making a big announcement. The 32-year-old knew putting his
wow.
body on the line would ultimately catch up to him. This decision would allow him to officially start his full-time Hollywood acting career. Even though Dwayne was a superstar, he struggled to find success early on as an actor. From 2004 to 2006, he starred in Walking Tall, which was received well by fans but hated by critics.
I
He
haven't
had some
seen that
throwaway
either.
roles like the crime comedy Be Cool and the film adaptation of the popular video game Doom, which failed to break
I've
even
seen that, but
financially.
that wasn't
However, the
great.
comedy thriller Southland Tales and Gridiron Gang performed a little bit better.
Southland Tales. I think I've seen. It was a weird film, right? Am I thinking of the right film? I don't know if I might have seen it. I don't know. It feels like it was a weird film. And Gridiron. I ain't seen Gridiron Gang either.
Financially,
Jeez,
but none
man.
of these films indicated that The Rock had a promising career ahead of him. Realizing his career was looking shaky, he decided to change his persona for the third time. Now he would take
Jeez.
on the role as the Gentle Giant. He slimmed down
Yes!
his appearance.
This is The
which,
Rock
let's
we
be
know.
honest, even a slim version of The Rock is still a 200-plus pound beast. But he started seeing box office success when he appeared in more kid-friendly films like Walt Disney's The Game Plan and Race to Witch Mountain, along with Get
okay.
Smart and The Tooth Fairy, all of which made over
Okay, I've seen
$100
Race to Witch
million at the
Mountain,
box
but-
office. The only problem with these movies
All
is
the others.
that he wasn't really acting. The Rock is actually the Tooth Fairy. But seriously, The Rock is known in real
What?
life as being a
Wait,
really
what?
nice guy, very friendly, and supportive. So in these movies, he's just being casted as himself. Plus, he really wanted to be in action movies, since, I mean, he's The Rock. After 3 family films in a row, he was faced with yet another problem of boxing himself into a genre that would be hard for him to escape from. So he called a meeting with his agents and developed a vision to take Hollywood hostage. He
Oh,
wanted
God.
to be Will Smith, but different and bigger. I don't know what that means, he said, but I can see it, and I have these. He held up his hands, and I need everybody to see it with me.
That
His
is a big
agents
goal.
had
Will
no
Smith
idea what he was talking
has
about,
been in a
so The
lot.
Rock fired them and got a new team. The plan
And
was
he
to
kinda did
avoid
it.
family-friendly
He
films
fired
for a
them?
while.
Hold
This
up!
fired them and got a new team. The plan was to avoid family-friendly films for a while. This plan was not about making money.
He
It was
switched
about
it up.
grabbing Hollywood by the balls and making it his. So he decided to change his image and kickstart his fourth
Faster,
time
I've
reinventing
seen
himself.
this.
He shaved his head bald for good, then put on a lot of muscle mass and turned into a more rugged warrior, rather than his previous handsome, chiseled model look. He pursued more action films. The Other Guys was a buddy comedy that saw success and was a step in the right direction.
wasn't
but
really
the most
in it
important
a
role
lot
of his
in
whole
that one.
career up until this point was Faster. This was
like
the
a bit
first time
part.
he had a lead role
But
in an
Faster,
action
yep.
film after Doom flopped. Faster was an interesting film. The Rock was a criminal seeking vengeance. He was cold-blooded and didn't have much dialogue in the whole film. It didn't perform that well financially, but it was a transition point for him because he was about to get the role that would kickstart his Hollywood takeover. Fast 5, 2011. Dwayne entered the Fast and Furious franchise as Luke Hobbs. Hobbs is a diplomatic security service agent who enters the movie investigating the deaths of 3 DEA agents. But his form of interrogating a criminal is by throwing them around the room and beating the snot out of them until they talk. The Fast franchise was already super successful at this point, and this one was their peak so far, $640 million in the global box office. Plus, this film is widely regarded by fans as the best out of the dozen. And as many of you know, landing a permanent role in an action film franchise as big as this is basically like hitting the Hollywood lottery. You become known and loved all around the world and could easily have a stable career. This was exactly what The Rock needed to kick his career into overdrive. From 2012 to 2016, Dwayne had to prove to the world that he was here to stay, and he did just that. He had a brief return to wrestling to host WrestleMania 30 and have an iconic title match against John Cena. It was his first bout in over 7 years. He got an offer to perform in front of 85,000 people live, and he couldn't refuse. But he never had any intentions on staying long term. In that same year, 2013, he did 5 movies. Snitch, which some consider to be his most underrated acting performance, G.I. Joe Retaliation, Empire State, Pain and Gain, Fast and Furious 6. By the end of 2013, Forbes named Johnson the
I thought they were going to name so many other different movies. I've never seen Empire State. I've heard of Pain and Gain, but never watched it.
Fast and Furious 6. By the end of 2013, Forbes named Johnson the top grossing actor, with his films collectively bringing in $1.3 billion worldwide. In 2014, he did Hercules. In 2015, he did Furious 7.
There's so many films I haven't seen. I've seen these two.
In 2016, Central Intelligence.
Central Intelligence, there we go.
A lead role in a major action film each year. His fame was at an all-time high.
Did I just see Smosh? Hold on.
Was getting a lead role in a major action film each year.
Why is Smosh even there? One episode. TV series, their YouTube channel.
His fame was at an all-time high, and he successfully rebranded himself as the rugged action star that's also sensitive that he knew he deserved to be. But this was only the beginning. The real takeover was about to begin when he started his production company, $7 Productions.
Oh, that's his?
There's something very important to consider. Over the span of what was now 15 years in Hollywood, Dwayne has created a reputation for being a hardworking and reliable employee. In a space where actors notoriously show up late to set, or come in intoxicated and hungover, or just generally act like divas, Dwayne has managed to stay focused and complete the task at hand.
Yeah, man wakes up at 3 in the morning or whatever.
Fellow cast members and crew,
just to work out.
He will remember everybody's name, from craft services to the camera operators. The Rock is every producer and director's dream employee. Rampage director Brad Payton, who has directed Johnson 3 times now, broke down exactly why every filmmaker should have him on their team. Dwayne is one of those guys where you present the challenge and he is going to succeed come hell or high water. When I need Dwayne to do something that's difficult, it's the equivalent of being able to be, you see that wall? I need you to run through that wall. And he's like, that wall? And I'm like, yeah, that wall. And he's like, F that wall. And I'm like, all right, roll camera. Here we go. Directors will tell him to redo a line 15 times and he just does it. No questions, no fights. He's excited to work and brings good energy around him. This is a huge reason why he gets casted for so many films. The trade-off is that he basically has to play the same character in every film, but that's exactly what he wants. No one's going to see me play a borderline psychopath suffering from depression, he says. My problem is I have a relationship with an audience around the world. For years, I've built a trust with them that they're going to come to my movies and feel good. So every once in a while, you have to drop this card, which is, you're going to have to find another actor. We need to figure something out. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the movie. Although The Rock is extremely limited in the roles he will play, he's consistent and he sticks to his strengths, which is respectable. So when you combine his work ethic, extreme likability, lack of problematic qualities, and a well-oiled machine of people...
He's reliable. You know what you're going to get when you go to a Rock movie, and that's literally action, comedy, just that's who he is. Cool guy.
Behind him, what you get is the biggest Hollywood takeover of all time. Seven Bucks Productions is the name of his film studio that was founded in 2012 but really kicked into gear around 2016 and 2017. His production studio will create the vision for a film that has The Rock as the lead role. Since they know his strengths and weaknesses as an actor, they can write the scripts and produce the scenes in a way that benefits him the most, which usually leads to reboots of old movies or using other recognizable brands. These movies are basically safe investments. Plus, he doesn't have to audition for the role since it's literally written for him, which saves a lot of time. From there, they will partner with another production studio, such as Paramount Pictures, Columbia Pictures, New Line Cinema, DC, Disney, or any smaller company to produce the films. Since they are partnering, that means Dwayne has ownership in the films he's making. It's also worth mentioning that likely means he is investing his own money into the films as well, risking tens of millions of dollars. Where most actors are likely only getting a salary, Dwayne is getting royalties for a lifetime. Plus, he's building up the value of his company. Similar to what Rob Dyrdek did. He produced Ridiculousness through his own company for 10 years, then sold it for $200 million. So while The Rock is on set filming a movie, his team already knows exactly how long it's going to take and will be ready for him to film the next movie as soon as he is done with the current one. For example, in 2017 and 2018, he released these 4 films: Baywatch, Jumanji, Rampage, and Skyscraper. Baywatch began filming in February 2016
I like them all. Good comedy.
7 months later, in September of 2016,
good comedy.
Jumanji began filming in Hawaii. So once The Rock is done with Baywatch, he goes over to Hawaii and begins the next film. Then 7 months after Jumanji, in April of 2017, he goes to Chicago to film Rampage. Then 4 months later, in August of 2017, he goes to Vancouver to film Skyscraper. And also, while he's working on these films, he's doing promo tours and press runs for the previous ones. There is no downtime, there are no auditions, there is no preparation for a new character. The Rock has turned his brand into a machine that uses the same formula in every film and pumps out 2 to 3 movies per year that are generating hundreds of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, during all of this, his team is writing and pitching movies 2 to 5 years in the future, so The Rock never has to have a moment where he is not filming. From 2017 to 2022, he released...
So if that's the case, they're 5 years advanced, right? So he's got 4 to 3 movies lined up every year. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 movies lined up in his catalog of what he's going to be doing. So we got The Rock for another 5. The dude's never going to, like, retire at that rate. He's just going to constantly have films going.
14 movies, nearly 3 blockbuster movies per year, and they have dozens more planned for the future. But the most important and life-changing role was his portrayal of DC Comics anti-hero Black Adam. However, things ended in a disaster, and many are starting to question if The Rock's ego is starting to self-sabotage. All the way back in 2006, Johnson was initially approached to portray the character Shazam, but he expressed interest in the film's antagonist, Black Adam. By 2014, development for the series finally began when Warner Bros. And DC began planning a slate of superhero films for...
Could this hold back DC, though? Because he's, like, lined up for so many films that if the Black Adam needed to be in, like, a DC movie, will he put another film on hold to do that? Or will he... That's what I think this is what the ego thing's going to be about. I'm going to let it play. But he could effectively hold back the entire DC universe with that character if he doesn't put priority on it, which could... That's the problem with doing a franchise character. You're kind of screwed because you're expected to be there. I think that's what happened to Henry Cavill being Superman, is the fact he was expected to be Superman and be there, but he had so many, like, opportunities to do other things that he wanted to do that, leaving the character kind of not as his priority anymore, which caused him to obviously, like, not be in the part of the new universe, is what I'm guessing. So this could be the problem. So, like, when you had the Marvel universe, like, Robbie Downey Jr. was just being Iron Man, Chris Evans was just being Captain America, but they had these side things going on, but it wouldn't interfere with their main thing that they are, which is their main character in that Marvel universe. So I think that's probably why it could be a bad idea having The Rock as this character. Unless he's just going to have his one solo movie and just have guest appearances and not be as big of a deal. But yeah, If he's got like 15 movies lined up, it could affect the universe.
For its shared universe, the DC Extended Universe. That same year, Johnson confirmed his attachment to the film and decided he ultimately wanted to play Black Adam. To reiterate, getting a lead role as a superhero or a villain is probably the most coveted position in an actor's career. DC and Marvel actors will receive praise for the next century for their roles. If you hit big in one of these movies, you are legitimately set for life. So it's obvious why Dwayne wanted it so bad. However, come 2017, Johnson began having issues with the movie's direction. When the first draft of the movie came to us, it was a combination of Black Adam and Shazam, 2 origin stories in one movie. Literally everyone involved in the production loved the script and were ready to greenlight the movie, besides The Rock. He felt like he would be doing Black Adam a disservice, so he petitioned for Adam
wanted his
to get
own
his
movie.
separate film. Warner Bros. Trusted him. They took him out of Shazam and put a Black Adam.
That's why Shazam kind of felt a bit empty. They were fighting greed and stuff, and it didn't feel right. It's still comically funny, but the action was kind of like mid. So that makes sense on why it felt kind of empty, because he was meant to be fighting Shazam.
Solo movie in development.
Black Adam.
This is where chaos ensued. Firstly, Johnson was set to produce the film with members of Seven Bucks Productions along with Beau Flynn and Flynn Picture Co., meaning Johnson had direct control over everything. He used this control to acquire writer Adam Sitzkiel, who co-wrote Johnson's Rampage in 2018. Adam would write the screenplay for Black Adam. Once the script was completed, Johnson recruited director Jaume Collet Serra, who he worked alongside on Jungle Cruise. At this point, Johnson had received the solo project he wanted and hired the team he wanted. All that was left to do was produce the film. However, due to the pandemic and commitments to the film Jumanji and Red Notice, production for Black Adam...
See, this is the problem with... He's too busy. He's too busy to play a superhero character. And that's probably why it's not as effective.
Due to the pandemic...
But both these movies were bangers, by the way. If you've not seen Red Notice yet, I highly recommend it. It's really good.
The film Jumanji and Red Notice, production for Black Adam was delayed, which led to fans being disappointed. Initially, Johnson was first meant to appear as Black Adam in Suicide Squad in 2021, but these plans were abandoned when writer and director Gavin O'Connor left the film in 2018. Filming for Black Adam was completed sometime in mid-22 and was released in October of that year, and some consider it to be a flop.
Watch the movie.
The movie cost about $200 million to produce and was said to have at least a $100 million marketing cost. Sources at Warner Bros. Say the movie will break even at $400 million. With the box office numbers totaling $393 million, it looks like the movie didn't profit. Plus, most of the reception from fans and critics was that it was just okay, average, what they expected, which is on par for what The Rock is known to deliver. But many question if The Rock had not taken full creative control over this movie, if it would have maybe portrayed Black Adam as more of a dark, sinister anti-hero. Maybe The Rock wasn't best for this role and fell short on his promises. Maybe his ego is finally catching up to him. It also doesn't help that he had a public feud with Vin Diesel that made him exit the Fast franchise. During the filming of The Fate and the Furious, the 8th installment of the Fast and Furious franchise, Johnson hinted at trouble behind the scenes. In a
they never had a scene together.
Post, he called out some of his male co-stars, sparking a feud between him and both Tyrese Gibson and Vin Diesel. When the film came out, viewers noticed their scenes were shot in such a way that indicated they may not have been on set at the same time.
Yeah,
which was
different
true.
timing.
They were never on set together. Dwayne says their beef came down to a disagreement about professionalism. Vin and I had a few discussions, including an important face-to-face in my trailer, he says. And what I came to realize is that we have a fundamental difference in philosophies on how we approach movie making and collaborating. That information didn't really help fans understand what was happening. Diesel later tried to make amends and reintroduce Johnson to the Fast and Furious franchise. However, Dwayne, although he regrets making that initial Instagram post, adamantly declined the offer and cemented that his time with the franchise was over. This has led many to believe that The Rock is starting to walk away from any project where he doesn't call all of the shots. At the same time, maybe he does deserve to call the shots. In just 5 years, Seven Bucks Productions has generated $3.3 billion in worldwide box office revenue. Dwayne Johnson is determined to outwork anyone who wants to compete with him. None of this success was handed to him. He was not lucky. He came from nothing and had been rejected and failed in every single industry.
I wouldn't say nothing, but
and instead of wallowing in his sadness, he did the opposite. He reshaped and remodeled his image multiple times, developed an incredible work ethic, brings positive energy to everyone around him, and stays out of...
What I mean by that, he had his dad... I know it's unstable and they had no money because he was a wrestler and he didn't want him in that industry. But I'm just saying, like, he had someone in that industry. He had a family member in that sort of industry, which then brought him into acting. In a way, he had a fan base before he went into acting, is what I'm trying to say. Which doesn't help you, but it kind of does a little bit because people know who you are. But yeah, He got the role in his first movie was because he was a wrestler that was called The Rock and people knew who he was. So it kind of, he did have a little bit of help, but no, he did try do things his other way, his own way and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, it's different between having absolutely no one in an industry doing nothing compared to having at least someone. But yeah, he did start off with nothing. It's true, he did start for nothing. Just covering myself there. Because I sounded a bit like, well, he did have, but no, I mean, like, he didn't have any money, he didn't have this, he didn't have that, but he still had someone that was in the industry to get him in there. He had two people, actually. He had his mum's side as well. So that's kind of cool. But what he's built is amazing compared to what most of us would do, even if we had that little edge. Do you know what I mean?
Of controversy. Sure, he doesn't test himself creatively, but he sticks to what he's good at and what his fans expect from him. Now at 50 years old, he's created a $300 million machine that will continue to work in his favor for years to come. And he built it all with his own two hands.
Yeah. Hell yeah, brother. But no, yeah, that was a very good video. We love The Rock here, and that was quality. Hell yeah. I wish him the hell of success. I think he should step away from DC and Marvel though, if he's got like 27 movies on the ball. Just being a superhero, you need to like have that as your main thing. It's the reason they got rid of Henry Cavill, like I said before. But anyway, hell yeah. Can't wait to see what he does next. Love all his movies. Dude's gonna be a legend. He's gonna be a movie legend no matter what. People are gonna know about The Rock in like next 20 years still. Good video.